and speaking of raising her voice, Aaron, you've been raising the point about U.S. term limits on Congress for how many years? You've been fighting this battle?
Well, I've been in the trenches here for a good 4 years. Really, I've been in the fight, I think, broader and with a broader speaking, probably about 6 years now.
6, wow.
So, yeah.
And so the bill, which just give us a good executive summary of what it does for listeners that may not know.
Yeah, sure. So Representative Chris Todd out of Jackson, he filed our resolution, which is HJR 5. It's a single topic Article 5 application for term limits on Congress only. And what basically this is a route to circumvent Congress to get the states to come together to propose what Congress won't, which is term limits on their own themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a gentleman, Hannah's father, was just asking me out there in the foyer, what those terms would be, and explain how who decides what those terms would be if it ever was taken up in Congress.
Sure, yeah. We have an amendment proposal, actually, in Congress that Ted Cruz and Ralph Norman support, and that's an actual proposal because that's how it works there. But with the states convention route, basically, you apply when 34 states pass a resolution like HJR 5, and 34 states have passed it, basically they have called for a convention to propose an amendment on the agreed upon topic. So in this case, it's just term limits on Congress. And once that happens, Congress is out of it.
Yeah.
So they sit on the sidelines, they watch it happen, and then the states will come together to finally take care of business because 82% of the people out there want to see this happen.
Yes, and that's what is polling as far as independents, Democrats, Republicans. How does that usually line up?
Really consistently, both nationwide polls and statewide polls, it's right around 80%. The most recent national poll is at 82%, and it's like 85% of Republicans, 81% of Democrats, and like 78% of independents.
I wonder if I've always been kind of curious about polling and outliers and statistics, but if Democrats are in power like they were, and then you flip Congress and you've got Republican majority, does that poll tend to change about term limits? I'm just curious.
No, it's consistent. Yeah, every year, every couple of years, there's a national poll done, and it's consistently right around 80%. Depending, doesn't matter who the administration is.
Yeah.
Republicans have failed in this issue for 30 plus years as well as Democrats.
Oh yes,
so,
definitely.
People are fed up with it.
Well, one of your fierce advocates is Knoxville County Mayor Glenn Jacobs, and how did he end up becoming the position of state chair on this issue?
Yeah, he's been pretty active in terms of the liberty movement, and he's very supportive of term limits, very outspoken about it, and so it was a really natural fit. We have a state chair program in all kinds of different states. I think we're up to something like 25 states where we have a state chair who acts like a state spokesperson locally to kind of promote the issue, and he's done a great job.
How did he get? I'm just curious because tell folks that may not know who Glenn Jacobs is.
Yeah, Glenn Jacobs, if you grew up watching I guess it used to be WWF, and now it's WWE wrestling, he was the character Kane. And big, massive guy. He was Undertaker's, brother in the storyline. And
brother-in-law.
Big guy. In the storyline, just like a brother, I guess, a long-lost brother.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's imposing presence, that's for sure.
He really is. We had him. Did you come to the chili supper that we did, the big chili cook-off?
No, I missed it. I wanted to so bad.
You came last year, though, didn't you?
I actually had the chili made and in my
That's
fridge
right.
ready to go, and then I think a snowstorm happened.
Oh yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I forgot all about that.
I'm 0 for 2 on the Mike
Sparks
chili cook-off.
We do a chili cook-off every year, and and Mayor Glenn Jacobs was our spokesperson that night. Recently, and all the proceeds went to Brenda Bryant, African-American pastor in Laverne. Sadly, her church burned down about 5-6 years, and not one Bible, not one cross was tarnished whatsoever. All of them survived. But we raised about $2,500 for my friend Danny Brewer, who's often on WGNS. He ended up winning it. I was a little surprised. To be honest with you, I didn't know the guy could cook, but apparently could. But he made a good point about the chili cook-off. We've been doing it for years. The pot of chili was gone. Like everybody got that part. He was like, the people have spoken, in other words. But Mayor Jacobs was just very very kind and compassionate. We had one gentleman there that was in a wheelchair, and I think it was a friend of Chuck Isbell, that guy's in a wheelchair, and I think is battling MS or something. He had one of the belts he brought in, and Mayor Jacobs just spent so much time with him, signing autographs and signing pictures. It was very touching. So it showed me a very kindler, gentler side of this guy that is a 7'6" or something like that. He's a huge guy.
For a guy that I watched in my teenage years watching chokeslam in a steel cage, he's actually a very mild-mannered guy and very kind.
It's just kind of ironic, to see this dude that I had seen wrestling, and then to be so compassionate with the kids and signing things. But he's been on the air with us. Well, last time you were in here, he was on the radio.
I think he called in. I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, because he grew up Catholic, and I grew up Catholic too. But you think he's going to run for governor?
I don't know.
You hadn't heard anything?
I haven't. No.
Yeah. I think I bet he does. Mark Green sent me a book of the day, so it tells me he's planning to run for governor. You get these little hints. You kind of see things after a while. You've been in politics for a while. Well, you really think though that term limits, just to play devil's advocate, do you really think it's going to make a difference in the brokenness that we see at the federal level?
Term limits themselves?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. It really, this becomes about, Mike, in Tennessee and in most states, very few states are actually full-time legislatures.
Mm-hmm.
Even the full-time legislatures, if you look under the roof, under the hood a little bit, and they actually have large breaks in between.
Yes.
But really, the states, by and large, they have citizen legislatures because you're part-time, you're not paid much. You have your own jobs that you need to hold down the fort with while you're serving at the state capitol. And so just built into the thing, we have very much a citizen legislature in Tennessee and elsewhere.
Yes. Washington,
D.C. is the polar opposite of that. And especially in the last 30 plus years, there's been an increasing trend toward careerism. It's the inverse. They spend most of their time in the Beltway, and then they make some token appearances back home, maybe kiss a couple babies, and then go back home. And that's not to besmirch any particular, members of Congress. Actually, the members of Congress from Tennessee happen to be actually very good on the issue of term limits. But this is a systemic problem, and having term limits in place is going to make a step toward bringing some semblance of a citizen legislature to the national legislature.
Yes. Well, what was the vote coming out of committee? It was this week, right?
Yeah, they passed on a voice vote. Okay. So right through, that's what we expected. We're actually coming up on Wednesday as well in committee, the full committee.
Full committee.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
And we were.
And who chairs that?
Goodness, Kelly Kiesling, I believe.
Oh, Kelly, yeah, Kelly's just he's a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
He really is. Got to tell a funny story on him, man. I hope he doesn't get mad at me if he hears me talking about him. But he's about, how old is Kelly?
Oh, I'm not going to answer that question. I'll get real trouble.
Probably, I don't know, 70, 72. And but he's a smoker. He's a chain smoker. And we used to be at the old building at the Plaza, Legislative Plaza. And if folks have been in the Plaza, they remember the cafeteria where there's a little, it's like an opening where there's plants out there, and you're way down under the Plaza, but you can still see sunlight and all. And the doors would automatically lock it at 9 p.m. They just would automatically just click, lock. Well, he went out there to take a smoke break, and he had left his phone at the office. It was 9 o'clock, at night. And not many people are up there at 9 o'clock at night. He was up there, and he was just out there smoking, and the doors just clicked, locked. Mm-hmm. He had to spend the night outside.
Oh, no.
The whole night.
Oh, man.
Yes. But he really is a great guy.
He's been awesome in this issue. He signed our pledge like you have.
Yeah.
To get behind this thing. So
I think he represents 5 counties. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I think I saw
5 counties. Mm-hmm. He championed an issue I always kid him about. We took on the issue of extending the life of a school bus, but the media will never tell you these stories. Stories that save the taxpayers' money, the media just ignores them. I don't know why. I guess there's not enough clickbait. But we extend the life of a school bus. It saved the taxpayers. It was estimated at $52 million. So if any school bus drivers are out there, we extended it for, I think it was 3 more years. But it was a battle. You wouldn't think this is such a fight. to get done, but it was a battle. And Kelly, I remember he came to committee, and I believe it was somebody said, "Boy, you just look rough, man." I mean, it's not something you hear in during a session, and man, you look really rough. And somebody said, "No, that's just his normal look like that." And but he was just right on that issue right there. But a great guy. I'm sure that y'all will be fine. Because if it gets to the floor, it's going to pass. Now, tell the listeners about what happened in the Senate last year.
Yeah, last session, we hung up a little bit in the Senate committee where we were. We were one vote short, so it didn't go forward. This year, new election
No
cycle,
Democrats are voting for it on the Senate, correct?
Not so far.
Okay.
Yeah. One is looking at it.
Oh, one?
Yep.
Are you willing to share who it is?
I'll keep
That's
that in
fine
my
if
pocket,
you can.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, we got it's a shuffling of the deck. We have a new membership committee this year that is very much in our favor. We have a great new Senate sponsor. Of course, Mike Bell was our last sponsor,
Yeah.
and he retired from the legislature. So now we have a local. We have Senator Don White as our lead sponsor.
Oh,
in the
good.
Senate
Okay.
side. So she'll
Okay.
pick
I
it
didn't
up.
know that.
Chris Todd can
Good.
get it through the House. We'll pick it up there, and
Good.
we'll get that done. So
Okay.
we're excited.
Well, if folks listening, just compliment Dawn when you see her for taking that issue on. If now you live in Kentucky, correct?
I do.
Yeah. Now, how far did you drive to come to the studio?
Yeah, I taught at church after Mass, and then drove about 4 hours out here, and I was gunning it, Mike. I'm going to make this on time.
You timed it perfectly
No.
because I pulled up and I thought, well, I'm going to have Hannah and her friends come up first, and then all of a sudden you're walking in. I was like, well, let's get Aaron to come up first. I've got a couple of school board folks that I don't know if they'll call in or not. Now, how's Izzy doing? Tell the story about Izzy, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's almost a couple years ago now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was just a man in Florida that started walking in Florida.
Yeah.
He was actually a local guy in Tennessee. I'm forgetting what town he was in. But he, on his own, just to raise awareness for term limits on guns. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Just on his own, he started walking from the furthest most tip of Florida, the Florida Keys.
Yep.
Walking, his intent was to walk the entire length of the continental U.S.
Yes.
to raise awareness for term limits. And we had no idea this guy was going on until midway through Florida. We heard about this guy. Local media picked it up, and of course we were always watching for term limits news. And met with him and kind of helped him out for a little while there. And he was booking it. He made it all the way into Mississippi. He made a little side journey into Tennessee and raised a lot of awareness here.
Yeah.
But he ran into a foot ailment, like a physical problem that threw a wrench in everything. So he's back. I understand. I think he's back roadieing. He's working with somebody.
Concerts.
I think Big and Rich is who he's working with.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Oh,
at least at some point he
they've came up and spoke. John Rich has come up and spoke.
Mm-hmm.
But he got me. I got kind of tickled last year, and he was telling me, I guess he was going through some area near the Florida Everglades and had a tent and camped out. It was at night, and he heard some gunshots or something. And he knew there's something going on at a distance, and some kind of shooting or something. People and the cops come pulling up, and they come up on his tent, and he was just in the woods, and cops come up there, and they said he gets out of his tent. I couldn't imagine 12 o'clock at night. He gets out of his tent. And like, what are you doing out here? He's like, well, I'm walking across the nation for term limits. And he said the cops were like, hey, thank you for doing that, and he said, I just heard gunshots. Don't know where the people went, but it is kind of a neat story. Now, he didn't make it. He was going to go to, what's the furthest tip of other than Alaska?
Somewhere else in Washington State, way up there. Yeah.
And I pulled it up on there. There's some little islands that
right.
The one of the little islands. He was planning on trying to get all the way up there.
Yep.
But anyways, he's been on the air with us. Well, we're going to switch over to Hannah and them. And Aaron, I appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate your group and how much y'all fought for this. And I think with Senator White's help, we're going to get it passed this year.
Yeah. And Mike, we just real quick, I want to appreciate you too. We have a plaque here supporting you as a term limits champion. You have been done so much for our cause, and we appreciate you.
Yeah,
man.
let me get a big photo with that bad boy. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Well, y'all been really supportive of me, and I think y'all use my comments. I talked about my late World War II father and
that was
the
great
greatest
stuff.
generation and what they would think about this nation
Yeah,
today.
that's on YouTube.
But thank you so much, Aaron. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Have you seen traditional chiropractors